talk to you today about is why people fail financially. And that comes back to really good planning. The other day, we had to go to this fusion meeting, and it was with this marketing group that I happen to work with occasionally. And actually there was Mike and Bill, and there was Christina and Jennifer. And Lincoln was on a budget at that time, so they put us all on a train. They wouldn't let us fly. They thought, we don't have a lot of money to fly today. And so it was interesting. I was just kind of watching these people, and I saw Jennifer and Christina, and they got on went to buy their ticket, and they only bought one ticket. So Bill and Mike thought, I don't know what's going on. They bought 2 tickets. So all of a sudden we get on the train, and Christina and Jennifer get into the restroom together, and wondering, gee, what's going on? And I'm watching, all of a sudden the conductor comes down, he knocks on the door. Tickets, please! Christina slides the ticket out of the door. All of a sudden, hey, that was pretty good. And so, Mike and Bill, they're pretty smart guys. So next time we're coming back on the train, and they thought, well, I saw them do it, so they only bought 1 ticket. Christina and Jennifer didn't buy any tickets at all. And I'm thinking, gee, what's going on here? So I see Mike and Bill, they get in the restroom on one side, and Christina and Jennifer in the restroom on the other side. And all of a sudden I see Jennifer come out, knock on the door of Bill and Mike's bathroom. Tickets, please!
Yeah,
that's called planning. Good planning, actually, on their part. Very sneaky, but good planning. Why do people fail? Bill, they did a survey about 60 years ago. How many people out of 100 are going to be financially successful? How many do you think that was?
3.
3%. Why? Why would only 3% out of 100 people become financially successful? What do you think, Steve?
They got good planning.
They have goals. Why do people fail? They don't have goals. They don't have written goals. They don't know where they're going. If you don't know where you're going, it doesn't matter which road you get on, does it? The other thing is that they don't understand lack of knowledge. And it's not being stupid. It's they don't understand the financial principles that make them successful. Anybody know what the rule of 72 is? What's the rule of 72, Mike?
And if you're earning 10% on your money, it will double every 7.2 years. Or if you're earning 7.2%, it will double every 10 years.
That's right. You take whatever interest rate you think you can get on your money, divide it into 72, and that's how long it takes for your money to double. Or the flip side of that is if you're talking about inflation, that's how long it takes for your money to be cut in half. And so that's an important concept. The other thing is poor investments. There's no such thing as a perfect investment. Anybody who believes that is wrong. What about a CD? Is a CD a perfect investment?
No,
Why?
because it doesn't have much of an upside.
It doesn't have much of an upside. There's not a lot of risk, but there's risk on that one because what happens about the risk of losing money? In other words, if you take inflation and you take the lack of return on that, you're actually coming out behind, you're losing money. And so what we want to talk about is how you can become financially successful. What about procrastination? None of you in this office, none of you today are guilty of procrastination, are you?
Chuck is.
Chuck is? Chuck, how could you do that? I was just a minute ago because I just did this about 5 minutes ago. So procrastination is one of those things where I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it. But we don't realize most people don't get to it. Again, Bill said only 3% of the American population become financially successful. Why? Because they procrastinate. Those other people did not procrastinate. The 3% had goals, they had written goals, and they knew what to do. And so our goal today is to help you become successful. How do we do that? By having written goals, by having written plans that can help you to achieve that. We sit down, we do a long-term plan. We find out what you want to become. In other words, we become the rudder on your ship. If you say, we want to be here at age 65, we're that little rudder that's going to make little course corrections for you to help you to do that. When we look at your investments, we look at asset allocation. Anybody know what asset allocation is? Christina, what's asset allocation?
Not putting all your eggs in one basket, divvying it up between high-risk investments and guaranteed investments.
Exactly right. You don't have all of your eggs in one basket. In other words, it's not all in the bank account, it's not all in stock. 91% of a return of a portfolio comes because you have it in the right classes of assets. It might be stocks, it might be bonds, it might be mutual funds, but you have it spread across the board. It's not all in one basket. And so again, just to summarize, to become financially successful, we need to have goals, we need to have written goals, long-term plans, and we need to map out how we're going to reach those goals. Without those plans, we're going to be like the rest of the 97%. We're not going to reach our goals, we're not going to be financially successful, and we won't be able to retire in the lifestyle that we would like to become accustomed to. Thank you.
Dave Folkerson, let's hear it.
Good morning, students.
Hey.
Now, before you throw me into a life jacket or a straight jacket and think I'm crazy, I am going to have you scuba diving by the end of this day. Does that sound crazy?
Not me.
Oh, come on, guys. Now let's dive right into this. Let's transition over. There's 3 fears I think that we have a problem with here. Well, let's talk about them. First of all, fear of water. Great fear. Fear of equipment, maybe. And fear of failure. Mike, I had to talk to you a little bit before we started. Let's go back to this fear of water. I know why you're afraid of water, because you almost drowned. That's a real fear. I had that same fear. I hated water. I wouldn't get near water. And then one time, kind of on a lark like this, somebody said, try it. You might like it. I know why Bill doesn't like water. His brother about drowned him. He hates it. He's afraid that he'll get underwater and have no control. Let's address that issue.
Not real fond of my brother either.
Yeah, he beat the crap out of his brother.
I don't care for your brother either.
But what we're going to do is we're going to take you into this pool. This pool right back over here, Chuck, it's a warm, heated pool. It's got a shallow end, 3 feet. You won't drown. I'll be right there by your side. What we're going to do is we're going to let you get used to the water, comfortable with the water. You know, just feel it. Hey, it's great. You know another thing we're going to have on you? You know what a buoyancy vest is? You can't drown. You float. You can't drown. You'll have this buoyancy vest. So once you get comfortable with that, then what we're going to do is we want to bubble up right to the next subject. What's that? Equipment! Equipment! Okay? We got the best equipment. We got the latest equipment. We got the best equipment. Hey, it's Dakar. Brand new. And we're going to fit it to you. You're going to have comfortable with it. We're going to teach you how to breathe with it. We're going to teach you again in the 3-foot section of the pool. You're not going to drown. You just put your head with the water. Easy. Get used to it. Lightly get underneath the water. If you're not comfortable, pull your head out. You know, you've heard that. Pull your head out, right? That's what we're going to do. You're not comfortable? Pull your head out. Now, what we want to do is now we want to flip over to the next subject. You know the flippers? You're going to have the little flippers on there? We're going to take you out to the ocean. Now, I know, Mary, that you just said you're afraid of sharks, aren't you?
Yes.
And you know, there's some sharks out there. But you know what? We got that solved too. We have this nice big bay netted off. There's no sharks. Now the other scuba diving company, they lost somebody last week, but we don't take you to those places. We don't do that. And so what we do is we have this boat anchored in there. We have a rope. You're right there at the edge of this boat. You're hanging onto the rope. You don't go down until you're comfortable. Until you're comfortable, and you know what? I'm going to be right there holding on to your life jacket. Until you're ready, until you raise your hand to lower that, let the air out of your vest, and start going down that rope. You don't.
Mary ain't going. She's not going.
Mary, you're going to love it. You know why? Let's transition back. Let me summarize why you want to go scuba diving. Have you ever wanted to fly? Have you ever been dreaming and you're flying like Superman? You're just, it's so comfortable, it's smooth. There is
I'm afraid of flying.
No. Bill.
His brother tried to throw him out of
Flying
the
with
plane.
tethers on. Flying, Superman never crashes. You're Superman. You're not in a plane, you're Superman. He never crashes unless he got Krypton by him, but he's not having Krypton here. So you're flying. Well, I was out there scuba diving. You're just going along smooth. You feel comfortable. You're floating. All of a sudden, you just come down and you just start cresting down. It was the greatest experience of my life. All of a sudden, it's just like a cliff. You just see yourself coming up. You want to go down, you go down. Put a little more air in your vest, go up. You see these fish. We're going to give you bread in this little sack. And what you do, you come over to the fish, Christine, and you go like this. And all of a sudden, these fish just come around, and they start eating out of your hand. And there's coral down there. And you can see this coral, you can see these schools of fish just flying by. And it looks like you're flying. It feels like you're flying. There's nothing like that pool. And when you're comfortable with that, we'll take you down there to experience it. You know why? Let's go back and let me summarize why I think you want to do this. We have a goal here. You wanted to do this, but you've been afraid of doing this. We can help you to accomplish that goal. You know, somebody's always told me it's better to aim for the sun and miss than aim for nothing. And that's what we're trying to get you to do here. We're trying to make you succeed. We're trying to have this video. We'll have a videotape of you, Chuck. When you're done, you'll be able to go back and say, look what I did. I overcame one of my greatest fears, and now I have done this. If you can do that, Chuck, you can do anything. And that's what we want to do. So to summarize, what I want you guys to do, and I've got John Cousteau back here with the equipment. I want you to just walk back here and let's go do it. You ready? Let's go!
Why the Land Rover Discovery is the vehicle for you.
Thank you. I'd like to start off by offering a suggestion to you today. That maybe today, in today's world, and we live in the 90s, that an all-terrain personal vehicle, sport utility vehicle, is the perfect vehicle for us as consumers. And I'm going to back that up with 3 different suggestions. 1, why do we want a sport utility vehicle? 2, what features would you want in a sports utility vehicle? And 3, what company would you want to buy a sports utility vehicle from? So let's talk about it. Let me go back, first of all, to the details of why the sports utility vehicle. What do you want out of a car or a vehicle when you have a car? What would you want out of your vehicle that you're going to purchase for yourself?
Comfort.
Comfort. Good suggestion. Bill, what would you want out of that vehicle?
I want to get from point A to point B.
Point A to point B. Economically or just get there?
Number 1 is to get there.
Just get there. Okay. Mary, what would you want?
Safety.
Safety.
I want it very cheap.
Cheap. Okay. All of them good. Okay, Christine.
I want to enjoy the drive.
You want to enjoy the drive. Let's take a couple of those points. First of all, safety. Is safety not a concern anymore today? You've got children in the car. Safety, I think, is probably one of the premier factors that we need to look at. Now, I know Mike over here, he coaches sports. Is that a concern to you at all? Dave will maybe throw all those equipment in there, throw all the kids in there?
Great practice.
Think about that a little bit. Now, I know that Jennifer up there goes up to the lake. She lives right by a lake. She's got all these chickens, she's got all this stuff. She needs to haul things around occasionally. What a vehicle. Now think about it. Here you have a sport utility. So you got safety. It's big, it's built for that kind of thing. If you get an accident, it's going to be safe that way. We've got point A to point B. I mean, boy, if he wants to go over the hill instead of around the hill, Bill can get there. I mean, that's the straightest line. Point A to point B, right over the hill. We can throw all the team in there. And so there's a lot of reason to have this. I like it because Fort Wayne weather is not all that great in the winter. Maybe it's going to snow. Well, that 4-wheel drive kicks in. Another factor that I really like about this thing, think about this. How many of you take vacations with your kids? How fun is that being cramped into a car for a long, long, extended period of time?
Are we there yet?
Are we there yet? That's 10 minutes out. I drove out of my sport utility vehicle from Salt Lake City. You know what I do? Right in the middle of there, we set up a TV. Kids were back there. They watched TV the whole time. I'm telling you, it was a much nicer trip. They slipped the tapes in there. We put them on autopilot. There's some real benefits to that. Let's talk about features for a minute. Let's switch to this next topic. Details of this ABS, 4-wheel ABS. Well, I'm telling you, have you ever been all of a sudden in a snowstorm, you hit the brakes, car doesn't seem to be responding real well? How scary is that? That's extremely scary. I was in Montana one time when I was coming down and all of a sudden I hit snow. The vehicle was out of control. I ended up into a guardrail. Had I had ABS and hit those brakes would have caught gently and finally brought me back onto the road. As it was, I slammed into a guardrail and got killed. So ABS is a very important feature. This vehicle also has aluminum titanium ribbed steel cages in the doors. So if you get hit in the side of this thing, you're going to have some protection. But the other thing is, we talked about comfort. Comfort is critical. I don't want to give up my creature comforts. I don't want to, the old Jeeps at the time, when you came out of World War II, they had nothing. It was open air. Guess what? This has a 5-disc CD changer. It's got leather. It's got a little stereo system in the back where you plug in where the kids can listen to their music. So you don't have to be listening to their own music. It's got air conditioning that comforts people in the back so that you don't have to have this blowing out 100 miles an hour in the front so that you're going to get blasted away. So we haven't given up all the creature comforts. At the same time, we have all of these safety benefits in here. Let's go back and talk about one more thing. Who would you want to buy a vehicle like this from? Would you rather buy it from somebody, let's say Lincoln. Lincoln is over here just down the way. They just came out with their new sports utility vehicle. How much experience do they have in this market?
It's their first one.
It's brand new. They haven't even had a year. Now what about Land Rover? We've been around for 50 years. You know the only thing that we make? 4x4s. That's the only thing we make. You think if we make, that's the only thing, we're going to make it a little bit better than the next guy, but we wouldn't have been in business for 50 years. And I would submit to you that that's a very important feature, because if you're going to buy something, you want something that's backed up by a company that knows what they're doing. We were voted the #1 sports utility vehicle in the United States. It's very important. So let me summarize these 3 points. Why do you want to have a sports utility vehicle? Why would I suggest that I think that that is the best vehicle for us in the 90s? One, again, look at all the features you can do. You can haul things around. I was having to fix my house the other day. Took out the back seats, slid a piece of sheetrock on there. You can't do that with your car, can you? You don't want to do that with your car. It's hard to go up to the lake. It's hard to haul things around. It's hard to haul kids around. You're a little bit afraid of that. Most of us don't use a four-wheel vehicle for off-road. I mean, I've never been off-roading in my vehicle, but I've been all over the place with it and done a lot of things. Second thing, all of the safety features. And I really emphasize safety, because to me, when I have my family in the car, and really this is my wife's car, she drives with the kids, she gets in an accident. That's the car that I want her to be in an accident. I'm hoping that never happens. But I know she's got four-wheel, she's got ABS brakes in it, it's going to give her some safety. She's got airbags in there, the kids are all strapped in, it's up higher, so if the car hits her, it's going to slide under her rather than hit her on the side. It has all of the safety features, and to me that's the #1 priority. Plus it's got all the feature comforts. And again, buy it from the company that knows what they're doing. These people know. I mean, we know. We've done this for 50 years. We've been through all of this. This isn't something new to us. You don't know whether that Lincoln next year is going to come out with all sorts of problems. We've tested everything in this vehicle. And so coming back to it, let me just summarize why I think you ought to be doing this is that, and why you ought to come into this dealership. We have an offer right now that you can test drive this. We want you to kick the wheels. First of all, what we're going to do is we have a comparison, a little comparative against any other vehicle that you want to consider. So if you want to consider a Toyota, you want to consider a Ford, you want to consider the Lincoln, we can give you all that comparison. We actually tell you to go out and drive those other vehicles. Why? We have a pile of rocks over here. Actually, the Fort Wayne dump. You can drive that right up. That's the highest hill in Fort Wayne. You can drive it up down there. You can drive it down to the forest. We want you to kick the tire. We want you to test drive it. Because we know once you do that, you're going to come back. So what we're trying to do today, test drive. We don't know whether you'll buy one. We don't know whether this is even the best vehicle, whether or not a four-wheel drive vehicle is what you want. But if you're considering one, we want you to consider this because we think it's the best out there in the market. And if you drive it before December 1st, we'll give you a ticket to the Nutcracker Ballet down in downtown Folkerson. Is there any questions on it? Thank you.
Got our first presenter. Let's hear it. Dave Folkerson, guys.
Thank you. How many of you think you'll be financially successful at age 65? By raising hands.
Hope so.
Most of you do. All of you in this room, but one of you will fail. Let me say that again. All of you in this room, except one of you, statistically will fail. That kind of sink in a little bit? Make you mad? Look what happens. Let's talk about it. I want to address 3 problems. 3 problems of why people fail financially. First problem, let's take a look at it. Back in 1994, the Social Security Administration updated a survey that they had done previously. And this is what they found. Out of 100 people.
I'm going to stop you for 1 minute.
Let me talk about 3 problems here, the agenda, 3 things that we're going to talk about. The problem, why people fail, and the solution. Let's first switch over here to the problem. The Social Security Administration in 1994 did a survey. And they had been tracking this for about 80 years now. And they've tracked all the way through. They tracked people starting out when they started working from age 21 all the way to age 65. The survey might be a little interesting to you because what they found is out of these 100 people, 19 are dead. Don't have to track them anymore. There are other 15% of those are making $30,000 or more. 66% of those are making $30,000 or less. Now think about it. Did you retire on $30,000 or less? Only 4% have $60,000 or more in income. The average median income is $18,000. Which is why we have this individual here chucking hamburgers over at McDonald's. Have you noticed that there is people who are a lot older that are flipping hamburgers? Bill, do you think they're over there because they want to flip hamburgers?
Some.
Some do.
Thanks.
There are some that will. Some of them they're just, but they're not what you call a type A, or they really wouldn't be over flipping hamburgers. They'd be back at their corporation. A lot of them there are bored, but a lot of them are forced to be working at McDonald's because they haven't planned ahead. Let's flip to the next point here. Why do people fail? Any ideas why people would fail financially? What about no goals? What I have here is a little road map. If you're going to travel, Christina, you're going to go to California, and you're starting here from Fort Wayne. How are you going to get? How are you going to get to California? You're going to San Francisco.
Map.
Map. How many of you have a financial roadmap? You know where you want to be. You sat down and you analyzed how you're going to get there, and you've done it in stages. Most people spend more time planning their vacation than they do planning their estate. And it's fun. This is not a lot of fun. So if it doesn't matter where you're going, it really doesn't matter which road you get on, does it? You want to go to New York? Fine, jump on that road. You want to go to California? Jump on that road. Most people don't have goals. Most people are ignorant of financial planning or the tax law. They don't understand it. They don't understand the compounding effect of money. And there was a survey done again. If you look at this, if somebody started an IRA at age 25, put $2,000 a year into it for 7 years, and then somebody started at age 35 and put $2,000 in for the rest of their life at age 65, who would have more money? One person, 25, put in $2,000 for 7 years, never another dime. Somebody age 35 put in $2,000 away, all the way to age 65.
The younger one.
Pardon me?
The younger one.
The younger one would actually end up with more money. It's the eighth wonder of the world, compounding effect of money. Another reason people fail, Chuck, is debt. What about credit cards? You know what the definition of a credit card is? A means of buying something you don't need with money you don't have with money you can't afford. That's the definition of a credit card.
You call my wife?
Yeah. Your wife is on our list. Actually, she's one of the best credit card clients that they know. But what happens is all of this money, we're not paying it back. And right now, people are starting to fall. Procrastination. Now, I know absolutely none of you in this room procrastinate, do we? Never. Oh, Chuck. You pointed at Chuck. Chuck procrastinates. I don't think Chuck procrastinates. You know, they're saying procrastination is my greatest sin. I really shouldn't practice it. I'll start tomorrow. You know, one of those things, I'm never going to procrastinate again. So, if that's the reason we're failing, what is the solution? Let's talk about the solution a little bit. Now, Steve over here is a gun enthusiast. Loves to hunt. He loves to shoot. He loves to shoot.
Only the targets.
Only the targets. Paper target. Okay? All right, Steve, if you're shooting at a target, where are you shooting at in this target?
At the bullseye.
Bullseye. We also call if somebody keeps hitting the bullseye a dead-eye shot, right? Isn't that what they're called? Maybe not in China, but over here, if they hit the bullseye all the time, they call them a dead-eye. What I propose to you is all of us become a dead-eye. What does dead-eye stand for? Dead-eye stands for disability. Have you taken care of the disability in the event that you are disabled? Disability, Bill, scares me a lot more than dying. Why? It's a living death. If I die, Gail can remarry. If I'm sucking oxygen in some hospital room, she can't remarry. and I'm consuming assets. I'm not replacing them. So think first of all, what would happen if you got hurt last night and you're no longer able to work? Have you taken care of that? Emergency fund. You know, we live in a tenuous society. What happens if Lincoln all of a sudden downsizes again and we no longer have a job? How long could we last? How much money do you have in an emergency fund, a slush fund that you could say, gee, I can go maybe 3 months, 6 months. You should have between 3 and 6 months salary put aside in the bank. If you don't, you could be heading for a real problem. Accumulation, we've already talked about it. How many of you have children who are going to go to college?
Oh, yeah.
How many of you are funding for that now?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Those of you who are not, ought to be considering that. Let's take another step. Maybe you want a boat. Maybe you want a nice trip. Have you started funding for those types of things? It's not just college. Identify your goals and make those steps to reach those goals. Death. Last night, Mayflower moving van took you out. You're no longer around. You're looking down at your family and saying, how did I leave them? I told you a little bit before about my Montana experience when I was going into the guardrail. Let me tell you what flashed through my mind. Checklist. Disability. Good. Life. Good. Emergency fund. Good. I'm not kidding. It clicked down that fast. Because I thought, man, I may not be coming out of this. Where's Gail and the kids going to be? Have you taken care of this issue? And finally, I can guarantee you're going to do one of 3 things. You're either going to die, you're going to reach retirement, or you're going to become disabled. One of those 3 things will happen to you. If you can tell me exactly which one will, at what time, I can tell you exactly how we ought to plan your estate, Mary. If you can't tell me that, I don't know. And planning is like a 3-sided stool. If you don't have all legs up, that stool will not stay balanced. And so independence. And so again, to summarize this, is that
You're gonna write in your key points
what key point?
for each one?
Oh, I have to write in the key point?
Yeah.
It helps to go left. Key point is the problem. Problem is that 4% become successful. Why do we fail? No plan. And how do we overcome that solution? By having a plan. That's what becomes critical. So the problem is that we are not planning ahead. We're not going to be financially successful. 4% are going to be there. Let me summarize by saying this, is that our firm is in a position to do that. Why would you want to come to our firm? Let me just relate a story to you. There was a plane that was coming over from Hawaii. And on that, in the cockpit, you had the pilot, you had the co-pilot, you had the navigator. You also had somebody that was hopping a ride. He was a senior pilot, had about 25 years. So you had 25 years there, the co-pilot had 10 years, and the navigator had about 5 years. So you're looking at 25, 35, 40 years there. The pilot had 10 years. Coming across, it had been a hard flight, they were running really low on fuel. But what happened is when they got ready to close into the airport, landing gear light came on and said, we don't know whether that's on or not. And so what happened is the pilot radio said, we want to go around one time and see if you can see whether this light's on. So they came around. Radar tower really couldn't tell whether it was on or not. Wasn't really sure. But what's happening is that the light kept flashing saying, we're low on fuel. And so the pilot asked everybody, what do you think we ought to do? The senior pilot said, no, I've been flying these planes for a long time. They don't fly well without fuel. The navigator said, I think we ought to land. The co-pilot says, I think we ought to land. The pilot had 10 years of experience. You know what the pilot said? I'm not comfortable with that. I think we ought to go around one more time. So we did. Promptly, the senior pilot, who was, just kind of hopping a ride, got up, walked all the way to the back of the plane, strapped himself in, took the crash position. Plane crashed. Only him didn't make it. Crashed into a field. Killed all the cockpit crew, killed quite a few people on it. The senior pilot survived. That's how we know that story. How I'm relating this to you is that our firm has the experience to help you through this. We've been there. We have, between my partner and I, 50 years of experience. We can guide you through these pitfalls. And I think that's important to you. What I'd like to do is, if you're interested, I've got some information here you need to fill out. Any questions?
Awakening and a big education now because we've brought Dave Folkerson in to tell us about the Kama Sutra.
Today I'd like to talk to you about a subject that is fascinating to me, and it's been one that we've had through history. And it pertains to all of us, especially those who have spouses or significant others. What we're going to talk about is the Kama Sutra. Kama Sutra is really the art of lovemaking in particular. Let's talk about it. I want to talk about three things, basically: the setting, positions, and massage technique.
Here we go.
So let's go back to the setting. In the Kama Sutra, what you have to have, what becomes critical, is the setting. The setting becomes the key point. Candlelight, romantic music, all of the things that are going to add to the art of being able to make love to your significant other.
I'll get married.
Very, very critical. You might want to even have a little bit of a candle. It just adds to the atmosphere. It's significant. So setting becomes really critical. Now, let's talk about positions.
Oh, man.
Positions are, again, in the Kama Sutra. If you've ever seen the Kama Sutra, there's many, many different positions. There's a lotus position. I won't go into a lot of detail on these different
Yeah, don't.
positions at this point. There is the swing position. There is the hanging chair position. I will let you just take that in your own imagination to be able to fulfill those details, at a later time. And Stephen actually has the book on this, so if you have any other questions, you might want to refer to Stephen. But that's a little bit about the scope of this meeting, isn't it, Christina? Now, let's go to another way. Another one that's critical is the massage. If you really want to get your partner into a mood, the massage technique is probably the best. You start again, you have that setting, you're going to massage. You start at the feet. Start relaxing him or her, and then you move up and slowly, gradually get up to the back. Take the knots out, relax them, get them in a tender, loving mood, and then you have the setting complete. Now we can go in this position so that when you are extrapolating into this unique position, the body will be able to make that adjustment. You'll be able to turn in areas that are uncomfortable and not natural. So, let me go back and summarize all of these details again. Remember what we had the setting. The setting becomes key. Without the setting, it's not happening. The positions, again, there are so many and they're so unique, and you should practice one every other night, just to get the hang of it. And massage. This massage sets it all up. So again, what I would like you to do in conclusion is tonight, take your significant other, come over here to the comfort suite. Yeah, hotel room.
Good to say.
Get the kids out of it. Practice. Practice makes perfect, and there is nothing better than a good Kama Sutra position. So I would encourage you all to do that tonight. Actually, we have sign-up sheets right up there.
Right. In the fusion presenting category, Mr. Dave Folkerson.
Afternoon. Just a couple minutes ago, I was thinking, along with this individual up here, we were both thinking that Lincoln's gone through a lot of transformation. And this morning I had to run over and get this projector. Luckily, I happened to catch Mike Tempest here going through the hall. And Mike, I'm new here. I've only been here since May. I don't know where I fit into the organization. and he gave me a chart that showed me exactly where we fit in the organizational chart, and I thought I'd share it with you.
Oh, man.
It's either an upward or a downward lateral movement. I'm not sure, but I think it's going up.
I'm
I could be
thinking.
wrong. You know, and I know you all are really into developing products, and I think that's important. I really didn't even know what you did until I've been here the last 3 days with you. But I don't know whether it's fortunate or unfortunate. I sit right next to Waldorf. Now think about this. When Waldorf's in, and on the other side you got Stickney and you got Fiesel. Now, you know, when all three of them, that's like a steam engine going off. But I heard a conversation yesterday that I thought I'd like to share with you about marketing. And here it is. Now here's Waldorf, here's Stickney. Or Swagger. He said, Swagger, we've been selling the hell out of this stuff lately. Have someone in SMR check it out and see what's on the level. Now that's how these guys market. Now I don't know if you market the same way. So having said that, let me start with a thought. And I want each of you to think about this in your own context, with your own planning, if this might not be important to you. It was by Ernest Becker. It's called The Denial of Death. What man really fears is not so much extinction, but extinction with insignificance. Man wants to know that his life has somehow counted, that it's left a trace that has meaning. And in order for anything once alive to have meaning, its effects must remain alive in eternity some way. Jennifer, do you mind if I ask you a question? Would you like to leave a legacy, something that you give, something that you have shown that you've been here, rather than just raising chickens, but something that you've left, that everybody can look back and say, Jennifer Purvis made a mark here in Fort Wayne or in this community. Would that be important to you to share? I hope to illustrate maybe some ideas for all of us in this room that maybe we can leave our mark in society. And so what we're going to talk about is how the Fuse marketing team can control their wealth and have a great impact in Fort Wayne.
All right.
That's what we're going to talk about
Let's
today.
do it.
Okay, here's my agenda. First thing we're going to talk about is the barriers to wealth. We're going to talk about enlightened planning, with proper planning, how we can get around those barriers, and the benefits. Okay? Now, let's first go to barriers. There's a wall, a big wall that's built up. Sometimes it's tough to get through those walls. What do you think those barriers might be? And I happen to have $100,000 right here for the person who's able to answer this question.
Procrastination.
No!
No.
No plan at all.
No. You're thinking of another presentation. We switched. We changed mid-spin. Okay, let me give you a clue. This is wealth accumulation. Wealth accumulation.
Not doing it early enough?
Not budgeting. No, wealth. What happens every time you
Group
earn
really wants
money?
to get more than
Saving,
you.
saving.
Not savings. What happens every
Barriers.
time we earn money?
Every time.
Taxes.
Tax planning.
Taxes!
Oh.
Estate planning.
Income taxes. Okay? Now I got a little bit more. I don't know, Kit Kat.
That can't be the only barrier. That's the
Capital gain. What else?
Estate.
Oh, you guys, you look like a Whopper guy.
Well, I don't want
Estate
to brag.
tax. What else?
Hey, don't go there, remember?
Anything else?
Barriers to effective
Property tax?
planning.
No.
Gotta go with-
Starting too late.
What?
Starting too late.
No. I'll go
said
on. This
that.
might be tough. Gift tax.
I was gonna say gift tax.
There's one more tax. It talks about transferring property not to your children, but to
Houston
your
taxes.
Gift tax.
Generation skipping tax.
Oh, right. Oh, man.
2 Whoppers.
Generation
Oh,
skipping tax.
gift tax.
Okay, in the conventional approach to planning, what happens is we as financial planners try to help you keep more of what you earn. Also, we try to help you keep or leave more of what you keep. In other words, when you pass away. But what happens normally is that we ignore the part that you can't keep. Most of us think, this is tax, I can't do anything with it. Tough, it's gone, I won't do anything about it. What we want to talk about is enlightened planning. Light turned on and said, hey, there may be something that we can do here. How do we do that? We're going to do the same type of planning, keep more of what you earn. We want to leave more of what you keep, but what we want to be able to do is control the part you can't keep. You're right, it is not your money, but you have a say in where it goes. And that's what we want to talk to you about today. Two types of capital. We have income and assets, that's total capital. Let me explain what happens. We have personal financial capital and personal social capital. This personal financial capital, we can do two things with it. We can consume it, which we do quite readily, or we can retain it and pass it on to our heirs. We also have social capital. Social capital, we have two choices. We can pay it to the government in the form of taxes, or we can self-direct a gift. What I want to talk to you about is a charitable remainder trust. What is a charitable remainder trust? You don't know what it is? Well, what I'm hoping to do is to be able to show you what a charitable remainder trust is. All of you that I understand, and the reason you're here is that you have highly appreciated property. You have real estate. You have stocks. You have bonds. And you bought them a long time ago. Now you want to sell those. But you don't want to sell them because now your Lincoln stock that you bought for $100,000 now is worth $1 million. What happens when you sell it? You pay taxes on $900,000, right? So what we do is we set up a charitable remainder trust. We transfer the stock, the $1 million stock or the $100,000 stock, it doesn't matter the number, into this. When we do that, two things happen. We get an income tax deduction and we get increased income. Why? We didn't lose 20% of it right off the bat. All $100,000 in this trust earning money. Now what happens is because of that, most people don't mind owning life insurance, they just don't want to pay for it. So if we can show them how to pay for it, which we have, Uncle Sam pays for your life insurance. So when you die, the life insurance goes to your kid. You get the income off that the rest of your life. And when you die, the assets go to charity. So what you've done, you've saved money, you've increased the income that you would have got, and you've benefited the charity. Let's look at an example. Here we have that $100,000. If you sold it, remember you lost $20,000 off the bat. Or with the CRT, no taxes. So now, instead of getting $6,400 a year, we get $8,000. So we improved your situation?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, now we put a little bit of life insurance in here. So we about broke even. So income-wise, we're pretty close. But now let's look at the other flip side of it. The estate analysis when we transfer it and when we're no longer here. Uncle Sam, anybody know what the federal estate tax, the highest federal estate tax is?
55%?
55%. That's what the federal estate tax is. Uncle Sam owns everything, about half of everything we do own once you get past the $1.2 million estate. And so in this case, we're saying, okay, the estate tax, when they die, it's still in their estate, they lose $40,000, so the heirs end up with $100,000. Think about that. You start with $100,000, pay $20,000 capital gains, $40,000 estate tax, the heirs walk away with $40,000. Sad, isn't it? If we'd set up a charitable remainder trust, now look what happens. The insurance is paid to the heirs, no income or estate tax. They get $100,000. Now the Fort Wayne Community Church, Foundation, Synagogue, whatever you decide gets that rather than Uncle Sam. So have we benefited the community? Sure. Have we benefited yourself? Sure we have. You can see that graphically here for those of you who like to see the graphs. You can see everybody has won except over here Uncle Sam won. Sure, he got nothing. Let's talk about the benefits again. We just summarized them. Increased income, reduce taxes, diversify assets, build wealth, create charitable gifts. Let me sum it all up. And I think it's important to do this because what I want you to understand, again, do you mind if I ask you a question, Mark? You had a choice between leaving it again to your church, or leaving it to Uncle Sam, or leaving it to that scout group that you're with. What would you rather do?
I'd rather be to the church or the scout church.
Did you realize that you had an alternative? Most people that I talk to don't realize that they have a choice. They assume I have to pay taxes. It's something that I can't avoid. What I'm saying is that we have exactly that chance. So again, to summarize, we have barriers. And those barriers, well, barriers, see that one was waiting too long. Well, that's the problem with that. So let me go back and I'll summarize barriers. Again, with the barriers, is that if we don't control our destiny, Uncle Sam has his own destiny. It's his agenda. We call it involuntary philanthropy. With enlightened planning, we control our destiny, we control our agenda, we control where that money goes. If we want to get really fancy, we can set up a family foundation. And think of this for a minute. Family foundation, your children manage it the rest of their lives, and it goes on forever. And finally, again, if we look at it, what are the benefits? We've increased income, we've benefited ourselves and our families, and we haven't had to pay less taxes. To summarize, it's your destiny, it's your choice. If you make a conscious decision, you can control that, and you can make an impact. You can leave your mark in society. They'll always remember Chuck, because now they have downtown Fort Wayne, a center for homeless children. And that's going to make an impact on your community that you'll never have another chance to do. If you don't do it in proper planning, that money's gone. How much of that money do you think is going to come back down to Fort Wayne if you don't do anything? Very little of it. And so what I'd like you to do, I know you've got highly appreciated assets. If that's ever of interest to you, talk to us. Let us show you some of the alternatives. If you ever have any questions, ask us. That's what we're here to do. We want to educate the communities.